back in the barn out here at Jacob Hepner's compound.
Yeah, compound.
This
is a great word for it.
This place is crazy.
Yep.
It's awesome. I want to sit down with you. You're going to hear, so if you're listening to this, you're going to hear the Hep in the background.
Yeah. Throwing around weights,
doing his thing, and Aaron back there getting crushed.
They're getting after it.
But while they're doing that, I wanted to talk to you about overspeed training.
Yep.
I think it's probably, I know it's misunderstood.
Yeah.
And I understand why it's complex.
Sure.
But maybe we can make some sense of this for some people and how it's used in the IEP process, kind of what you're doing with it on the range, and how that can be compared and contrasted to what may be happening in the gym.
Right. Yeah, and I think starting off, an important piece is just defining overspeed training, right?
Yep, let's do it.
And specifically in the human performance or strength and conditioning industry is more so where that term comes from. However, I see it a lot in the shooting industry. I just don't think it's defined as that. I think a lot of people have these training drills or techniques that they're using, but they just don't have a way to define it.
Yep.
And so I think that's maybe something we can talk on or bring light to today. So from the human performance side, if we're talking about overspeed training, the example I always give people is like, hey, we're gonna clock somebody sprinting.
Yep.
Right? They sprint 15 miles an hour.
Okay.
Flat ground, boom, clock it, good to go. Then we turn around and we hook a bungee up to them that's assisting them. So it's pulling them in the direction of travel.
Like at the hips, right?
Yep.
So they got a bungee.
Yep.
And it's connected at the finish line.
Yep. So strength coaches will do that exactly, or maybe run downhill or something like that. But it's pulling them in the direction of travel. Boom, clock them, and now they go 20 miles an hour assisted, right?
Boom.
Yeah, boom. So the body is now getting the neuromuscular connection, the muscles, the brain, all of that is feeling, oh, wow, there's more possible, right? Now, you can't run in that flat ground unassisted, but it's giving the brain and the body of like this understanding of the next gear. Next step, though, is then going in training. How do we make that normal, right? Now, obviously, you can't just keep going. There's not unlimited levels here. Everybody's going to have a ceiling, but I think a lot of people don't tap into that next level. And so that's used in the strength and conditioning. Additionally, we kind of talked on, another concept, overload training. Again, very similar. Let's say you can 1 RM on a back squat, 400 pounds, 405, put 4 wheels on it. Then we turn around and we say, okay, we're going to load the bar up with 600 pounds. Just step off the rack.
Yeah, you're not squatting it.
You're not squatting it. Just pick it up. Unracking it. Yep. See what it feels like. Get under it. Right? Okay. Now the body's like, holy crap. 400, that doesn't seem that bad anymore, right? Now, again, we're not...
You can't give it like a persona.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there's a switching on process that's happened there, right? To create an adaptation.
Absolutely. And so then you have to train all those things. So if the human performance or strength and conditioning, that's been used for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
This is not new or shattering.
Yeah, not at all. And this is an IEP thing. This is not like we made this up. That is neural adaptation, right? And as you're using it per your human performance. I don't know, fast forward, but one of the things I keep seeing in the industry is people using different intensity modifiers or variables that they're introducing.
Like overspeed training.
Or overload training in the shooting side, right? Ben Stiggers, he's got Ben Stigger and Matt Pranka use obviously doubles, predictive reactive.
Doubles.
It's inducing speed to isolate mechanics, right? So that the faster you can shoot predictive allows you to enhance your speed in reactive shooting. For those of you who don't know exactly what all those are, I would definitely go listen to those guys, get a better concept. The point is they're using speed to really work on mechanics.
It's overspeed training.
It's overspeed training, 100%. There's some other competition shooters that use, I think Steve Anderson, I believe, has a speed mode, as he calls it, to where he is less concerned about accuracy. I don't want to say he's not at all okay with no accuracy, but I think less concerned, which makes complete sense, of really moving fast, really seeing fast. Mechanics are maybe going to be a little sloppy, but you're going fast, right? So then whenever you have to come back and dial it back a little bit, right, there's our intensity modifier that it should feel maybe more in control because we know what really fast feels like, overspeed training, right? Using speed as it pertains to movement, vision, etc., as a going past the threshold that I normally would have. My neural adaptation is like, okay, I can actually perform over here. And the brain's like, this is cake.
And I'm going to say this, so it's like this, I'm not playing the devil's advocate to you, but just being maybe a little bit more specific about this works well. Who does it work better for versus who doesn't it? Well, first off, you have to have certain things downloaded onto the motherboard already.
Yep.
Because what you're asking it to do is you're in quote, air quotes, you're overloading it.
Yep.
You're putting on, if you're trying to put this on the hard drive, you have to have room on the hard drive for this, which means you have to have gotten to a certain level of proficiency and skill in order to be able to be pulled by a bungee. Because if you look like, a giraffe on roller skates running anyway, hooking a bungee to you and being pulled across the finish line makes zero sense whatsoever.
Dude,
and I think most people would get that.
Such a good call out. I'm gonna use a slightly different verbiage of proficiency and skill. I'm gonna say a foundation.
Yeah,
you have to have a foundation already. Maybe not already. Maybe I should say that. Someone must teach you the foundation first before applying that overspeed or overload training.
To get the maximum benefit.
To get the maximum benefit, exactly. Right. Because if you induce that overspeed or that overload training too soon, well, now you're just being taught and or teaching yourself really bad mechanics.
It's a shitty movement pattern.
And now all of a sudden you're shitty. And again, we're talking human performance, but the same on the shooting side.
Same.
All of that is going to suck as well. And now you're going to be just sucking with shitty mechanics and going way too fast.
Yeah, I think people can relate to, like, if your grip sucks, right? Or you don't understand what adjustments you need to make to your grip when you're not in an overspeed or overstressed environment, then doing so, overstressing yourself, and then trying to figure out what you need to do to get better at it is, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's guesswork.
It is. And I think, I can go down a lot of holes here.
Let's do it.
I don't want to, I don't mind pissing some people off, but at the same time, if you don't understand enough about it, then I don't want to create a conversation. But not you, but some of the listeners, I think some of these overspeed training that is out there, that is one of my, I would say, things that we need to bring it back a little bit. I think some people are going like way off the rails and it's like overspeed. And it's like, yeah, but hang on a second. Have we given them enough of a foundation? And my answer, my answer is no. Right now, do I think you can still learn something? Yeah. But my hesitation there with some of the things I see in the shooting industry is that person willing to put in the time to train it and fight through or really refine, let's just say, grip and put into the gun, trigger, vision, whatever it may be, right? That they're trying to train, and it turns into, no, they are not. And so it just turns into shitty mechanics, and you're not learning, you're just learning to go fast, too fast, maybe I should say, and you're just going to be jacked up because you're not putting in the time and effort to really refine and utilize that overspeed training appropriately. Yeah,
it's kind of like gaming a drill. Like if you set up the drill and you run it 30 times, your body will figure out, or you will figure out a way to get through that drill faster. Now, do you understand how you did it? That's the key, right? It goes, in terms of performance, whether it's performance shooting, performance in the gym, or whatever else. Having that strong foundation of understanding, but also the skill and the proficiency and the foundation to be able to do it. Those are all very different things. But
very different. Absolutely.
They all play together.
Again, deeper level of understanding exactly what you're saying. So for IEP, how do we use it, right?
Yep.
Right.
Where's the show up?
Exactly. Where do we utilize this? So I do think, one, it is, I don't know, something that we use regularly in our programming, I want to say, like in the strength and conditioning side, but I know Aaron and Hep do utilize it. I just wouldn't say that's our primary focus. On the shooting side is where, again, I can speak it from a little bit more. As movement as it pertains to shooting, how we personally, our approach, whether it be in a class or someone who's working with us, we teach the foundations first. We isolate the skill, give you the fundamentals of how do we want you to move into that position, exit that position, have good body mechanics. Again, what we're saying, I think you have to build the foundation first. If we just go out there and be like, run as fast as you can, right?
You're going to see all kinds of stuff. You're going to see,
you are.
We do.
I was going to say, and we do that. And maybe for everyone to kind of have, a little context, we test everybody right out the gate. And we don't coach because we want to see how will you perform raw? What do your mechanics look like before we start messing with you? And so we do. We see a lot of things, right?
That's the assessment.
Yep, that's the assessment. And that's the point of it, right? Is to see, okay, where are we at? From there, we teach the foundations. We give that understanding at a deeper level. We're pretty good, in my opinion at least, of why Here's our expertise in the human performance side. How does it apply to you as a shooter, and why does it make a difference? And where is it applicable to your job? So we give that a really good foundation. From there, the whole day we're running. Like, we are running into out of positions, shooting, and we tell guys, like, we want you to shoot. We're going to push you to shoot uncomfortable, right? That is that overspeed or that overload concept. Is we give you the fundamentals of how do we want you to move. We also, especially in our 2 days where it's really shooting focused, whereas like our tactical performance lab is 1 day of human performance and 1 day of shooting. But our 2 days of shooting, we really cover all the shooting pieces. So not so much we don't modify your grip, but we talk through the different things that are important for the grip. We talk about vision. We talk about your stance, your base, like a better foundation, like in your stance. And then after that, we get into the movement. Then we start inducing different intensity modifiers. So speed, movement, vision, multiple rounds, et cetera, right? And so, yeah.
So let me just jump in here real quick. So this is what I've gotten from it too, and my experience, being around it is that you talked about this. There's an assessment, right? Then there's a teaching to help people have a better understanding. While all this is happening as coaches, there's an evaluation process going on. The assessment continues, right? And you're seeing some people are getting it and some people aren't. And you know what they're getting and you know what they're not getting because you've done this enough and you're able to diagnose. You're able to look at it and go, I know what this dude isn't doing. I don't necessarily know what he's feeling,
right? But
I can see what he is or what he isn't doing, or this person.
Which helps too, because I do think we have enough experience. We don't know what he's feeling, but we are able to articulate it in a way where, hey, what we're seeing, the mechanic issue we're having, what you're feeling, those two, here's how those two link up. So they can have a better understanding, a deeper understanding, maybe I should say, right? And then so how do I modify that? How do I fix that, right? Where I think some of the other instructors I've seen out in the shooting industry is a lot more about, your self journey. I'm not saying, everybody please hear me, because I'm a big believer and you need to go test, and there is a self journey or self exploration of your grip and different things, find out what works best for you. However, there are definitely wrong. I think there's multiple rights, but I think there are definitely things that are wrong or maybe less efficient, right?
I think we're playing semantics here. At the end of the day, I think
I agree,
the experts would agree there is some wrong stuff.
There are. And I just think people get hung up
unless you're not trying to be efficient. If you're not trying to be efficient, then you do.
I just think people get hung up on like there's right and wrong. Like it's black and white. There's some gray in there. There's multiple rights. I think there are definitely some wrongs. And so I don't have a problem as an instructor saying, that's wrong. Here's how you can do it better. I think that there's, this one can be good. This one can be good. You choose which one works best for you.
Right.
And so I think the education process is really important in terms of when we're providing this overspeed or this overload training, in making sure that they understand the deeper level. We build that foundation. Then when we start adding these intensity modifiers, whichever one, right, or whichever concept you want to use, that's where we start to see growth. Because the flip side of this, right, why overspeed or overload training is so important. If you always live in comfortable, you always shoot slow, or you always shoot only static, okay, well, your ceiling is massively reduced, right? Your performance can only go so high, right? And that's I don't care what, that's literally in all parts of your life, right? Like that's not just shooting, not just human performance, your job, anything. If you are not seeking or pushing yourself and finding what uncomfortable is, you will stay static. And so that's where that overspeed overload training is important. Again, how we use it, but I think on the shooting side, there's lots of ways to explore that. But those are some of the ways we've defined it.
Yeah, so to be clear, like when we're talking about the human performance and the fitness side of kind of what we're doing with our programs, this is not something you're going to see a bunch of, right? Because of all the things we just talked about, like you really need to be shown as from somebody that understands. Like you may be a very skilled athlete, but this is not something you want to be sort of doing on your own and evaluating it on. This is kind of next level. It's like if you're going to do a 1 rep max, are you going to do that without a spotter? Right. So you're on the bench press and you're loading it up and you're basically doing forced reps. You can't do forced reps. Maybe you can add some bands and some different things, but now we're adding in some different variables. Right. So just because it may look similar doesn't mean the training effect is the same. Right. And I think that goes back to what you're saying about the right and the wrong. it can be wrong when you know where it needs to get to and the steps in the process that need to be hit in order to get the training result that you're looking for.
Right.
And there are rights and wrongs there.
Yeah.
Because you think that you're doing it may look similar, or you think that this is right because you're trying to marry this concept with this concept. If you aren't able to put those things in an order,
that's a huge one.
The human body works this way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's, and again, I definitely don't think we're all knowing. We learn a lot, but our education has absolutely made it like this stuff is not Jake's opinion, right? Like I didn't make any of this up.
Right,
this
is not original.
Yeah, this is literally education. Like going into getting a doctorate and understanding the neuromuscular system. And so again, this is not a Jake thing. I'm not trying to take credit for this. But to your point, exactly. It's just how the human body works. It's understanding how to train it more efficiently. One of the things you said that I want to really go at, the ability to isolate what is it that I'm trying to work and or train on is enormously important, right? I think is commonly missed because people are like, ooh, I'm going to apply this intensity modifier. I'm going to induce speed. Okay, well, hang on. There's like 14 different variables in that drill you just ran. You have no idea. You cannot tell me that speed either helped you or hurt you because there's way too many things going on in that drill.
What are we looking at?
Like, what is the thing that you're isolating and what are we measuring, right? They're like, oh, Lego set up this stage and bang, 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 bang. And there's a reload and there's a transition and a primary, secondary transition, like all this crap. And it's like, yeah, but you sucked at the drill. Okay, well, which piece did you suck at that made your performance?
Okay, so you got hits, but you were really slow. Or, like you could have saved a lot of time. You could have done way better in this particular case, but you're doing better than the guy standing next to you. So I'm good. I'm good enough.
Exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And again, that's where that intensity modifier and specificity of training, I feel like I'm really being a nerd here, but I'm not trying to use words that are, foreign to people.
Yeah, man, I caution you on that because I think that gets said a lot. Like, don't overcomplicate this. Don't overscience it or whatever. Yeah. But here's the deal: at the end of the day, there's value in this. And so let's not.
I think that's I agree, and I think that's the hard part for me.
Stupid either.
No, and I didn't mean it like that. So and I know you know that, which I appreciate you calling out. It's the people that are like, oh, don't make more difficult than it is. It's like these are real words. Like they really do mean things.
They mean
and
stuff.
Like we should be using them. How do we now? Is there a point where it's like, okay, we're going a little bit past? Like, yes, I completely agree. Again, I'm not trying to nerd out here. We're trying to give you the information of how do you utilize this skill to enhance your performance, specifically on the range. These are great things to be training. So,
good things to think about.
Exactly, good things to think about. I don't know if we have to wrap it up specifically, but to recap, kind of, so I can bring it back. If you're going to use this for your shooting, I think using it in your movement. How can I move faster? Obviously, my accuracy is probably going to go down. Actually, I had a really good, real quick, sorry, sad story. We just worked with a SWAT team that's one of the largest in the country and runs either first or second most amount of ops in the country. And one of the shooters we were talking to when we were teaching, they were shooting and I kept noticing that her support hand specifically was just non-existent. It was on the gun, but it was not being used. I mean, rounds were just cranking everywhere, right? And so as I talked to her, I said, hey, all right, so we really want to work on the support hand. Like, what are you feeling, right? Et cetera. And she was like, honestly, I don't have this problem when I'm just standing static on the range. Then once I start moving, my brain it falls apart because I am not focusing on that in that moment. That's an intensity modifier, right? That is overspeed training. Like I have induced a new variable that I'm now my body's having to cope with versus that is the whole purpose of why you train versus I understand when it feels static. I need to understand what it feels like with movement, but a simple movement or a singular movement, right? And equip myself with here's what it feels like. A secondary movement, move faster. Transition between primary, secondary, work right? It's a progression. And I think too often I see people just go buck wild with it.
Yep.
And it's like 15 things in there. And it's like, dude, you have no idea what your grip is doing. And you get frustrated whenever you're shooting everywhere, but you haven't built those skills, right? And I think that's where that overspeed training and how you can utilize it. Isolate a skill, push. If all you're doing is stacking A's, this is generally what I do in the class. Hey, that was a good run. now go faster.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like I want you to throw a Charlie. It's not that I think that accuracy is not important. I do. But if all you're shooting is alpha, that's where that overspeed training comes in. Find a way, whether it be speed, movement, multiple rounds. I'm trying to think whether intensity modifiers you put in there, multiple targets, start finding something to induce that's going to push that. And then try to make that your new norm.
Yeah, one thing at a time, though.
One thing at a time, exactly. Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
So it's not too many things. I think there's a couple different things just to kind of to wrap this up, and that is, in all the things that I'm hearing you say, and people out there listening, because if I'm on the other side of this kind of listening to, okay, like, how do I do this for me? There's something important for people to keep in mind, that there is this concept of individuality. The principle of individuality, the specificity of the training, and then the overload principle that's involved in both of those things.
Yeah.
So it isn't a one size fits all. There's a framework that we work within. There's a framework that we work within, whether it's on the range or in the gym, if you will. And then it's up to the coach to really find out, to help that individual understand how this process might work for them, or give them the cues, give them the spot, if you will, for them to improve without getting too far ahead of themselves, and then at the same time, making points along the way. What you did right there, yes, do that again. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Or don't see, I don't know if you feel it, you're taking that extra step. What do you mean? Like this? Oh shit, it never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things like that the coach will pick up for you. So it's super important that you get in there. And again, people are trying to pick all this information up from YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And there's a lot there that you won't get into that 15-second reel.
Yeah, man. And I listen, we would love for you to come to a class. We would love for you to go check us out on social media. And I don't know. At the same time, we recognize that not everybody can come to... Listen, send us a video. We want to be accessible, and it's super important that this is continue to be done right, and we want to make that impact in the industry. Reach out to us. That said, in terms of where you're taking it, of come to a class, but if social media is it, again, try to do it to the best of your ability with isolating variables. I think at the end of the day, you should be looking at it as a training process. Going to the range and just bang, 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 and just ripping, try to dial it back. The more I've been able to shoot with very high level shooters, it has helped me a lot in growing in my personal journey. They're really, 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 really good at the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Really good at fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
When you want to be really good at everything,
that's where
those you have to start at the fundamentals. And way too often I see people that want to build these crazy stages or whatever it may be, right? And it's like, you can't even shoot. Your grip is non-existent. We're going way too far right now.
Yeah, I think that's the, kind of just in the end here, it really is. This is a complex process.
Yeah, sure.
But it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And I think people conflate those two things a lot of times. And that's what we're trying not to do. Yeah. So going back to the how do I learn more? How do I pick this stuff up? I really don't have this kind of access, or I live remotely and I have to work on my own. There's video that you can do of yourself and things like that. But I think what it comes down to more is we're going to try to put out more of this stuff.
Right.
So if you're looking for this kind of a conversation, or you're looking for that video that can kind of demonstrate this thing, there's a ton of this stuff out there. It's going to be all over the Instagram stuff. You'll see it in YouTube, and you'll hear it here as well. So stick around, because we'll talk more about this and hopefully try to put the pieces together for you. But I love what you just did right there, and you just open it up to hey, look, if you have a question, just reach out.
Absolutely.
It can be a two-way street.
Absolutely, absolutely. We try to be super responsive, but also we genuinely enjoy having these conversations. Again, we don't know everything. Sometimes we get great questions oh man, that's a great way. Maybe we need to be attacking that, or if you have that question, there's a strong chance that you are not the only one.
It's 1,000,000 to 1 chance that somebody else
someone else has the exact same question.
Yeah. So overspeed training, it'll come up again. Think about it. Let's not dumb it down, but let's not overcomplicate it at the same time.
Absolutely.